Hello. So, as always, we are going to wait to see who pops up. So, this is going to be for the people who are watching on the replay. So, they're telling me that they are letting everyone know that I just started a video. So, hey, how's it going? Happy Thanksgiving Eve. I know it has been a while since I have done a live video, and I promise I'm going to explain why in a few. But I hope that you all have been doing well, and I hope that you all will have something great planned for tomorrow if you do celebrate Thanksgiving. And if not, that's cool too. Just enjoy your time off for those of you who do have time off, and for those of you who do have to work, still find joy in it. You know, I haven't decided if I will be working tomorrow or not. It just depends on how I feel. So I might, then again, I might not. You know, it's kind of like I might work if I feel like it's kind of lazy. I might do a little something, but it's not going to be a lot of work, you know. So we are just going to wait and see. So let me see what time it is. So probably going to wait about 2 more minutes, and then I'm going to jump into everything. And I hope that you all have been doing extremely well. The last time I went live, it was July, so we are in yet another season, getting ready to approach another one. And I did intend to do a whole lot more live videos this year, but unfortunately that did not happen. But I think that 4 is good. I think that that in and of itself, you know, is kind of prophetic, you know, like once every season, it seems. And it seemed like almost every single time I was ready to get back on a consistent schedule, something would come and interfere. So I don't force anything, I don't fight with anything. Look, I'm like, that's what it is, that's just what it is. Like, I'm not gonna argue, and I just take things as they come. I move naturally. So if I felt as if I didn't need to push the issue, that's exactly what I did. I did not push the issue, but this particular topic that we're going to talk about tonight, it has been pressing on me for months to talk about it. I actually wanted to talk about it over the summer, but like I said, I'll tell you guys why that did not happen. And it's one of those things that I think is very important, something that affects all of us. Like, absolutely, positively, no one is immune to trauma and how it affects us, whether it's big T trauma, little t trauma. If it affects you, it affects you. So, as always, I just want to make the disclaimer, I am not a mental health professional. I am not a licensed therapist, counselor, social worker. I am not that. I'm just someone who is going through the process of healing from trauma, and I just want to share my experiences with you all. And you know by now, if you've been watching me, I'm always going to point you in a direction of someone who can help you professionally. I'm just sharing from my experiences what helped me in hopes that it will help guide you and lead you in the right direction. So I am going to do a time check. So it is 5:04. So I am going to go ahead and just get started with updates. So why have I not been on live video since July? So unfortunately, the day after my last live video, which was July 13th, my last video was July 12th. So the topic was passion versus purpose. And it was such a crazy evening because it was people I had not seen in a while pop up and talk to me, people who had a lot to do with my purpose. And it just felt like God was in the room. I could truly feel his presence. And the next day, I really understood why I needed that sense of community. So my mother got a phone call that one of her younger brothers had died. And it was very unexpected. And oftentimes on that side of the family, we do have unexpected deaths. So it was really a lot to process, to really make sense of, because we still are dealing with it now. It's one of those situations where he lived in California, so like we still weren't able to get closure because of the circumstances surrounding it and stuff. And it's still a lot of questions, and you know, it was just a lot, you know. So with that happening, I was not going to push the issue, and only after that to have other issues arise within the family, ongoing issues. If you all watch my YouTube channel, Confessions of a Good Girl, I did a video in 2020, and it was called What Had Happened Was. And I didn't go into too many details about that particular incident. However, it is one that I have been dealing with for most of my life, and it involves domestic violence. And I talked around it in that video. I did not come out and explicitly say what the issue was. And I'm still not going to say who it involves. However, what I will say is that those type of situations don't just affect the people who are directly in it. It affects everyone. So if you know anyone who is in those type of situations and they need a way out, there are so many resources out there to help people get out. Hey, Mwanda. So my friend just joined, and like I was saying before, like domestic abuse, domestic violence, absolutely positively nothing to play with, to play about. And abuse isn't just in one way. It's not just physical all the time. And I think the most dangerous aspect of abuse is the psychological aspect. I think that's the only reason why it's easy for the abuser to keep the person who they're abusing there, because they're in their head, they're in their mind, getting them to see everything and everyone differently, even themselves. Hey, how's it going? So, I am a whole lot more vocal about that nowadays, and I haven't decided whether or not like I'll talk more about it. As for right now, that's all I am going to say. And hey, Miss Josie. So I haven't decided whether or not I'm going to talk more about it, but as for now, this is good. That's all I'm going to say, because it's more than what I said 3 years ago. So that is what I'm going to say. And in between that, I also had a birthday. So I am 33 now. I know it doesn't look like it. But I felt really, really, really good. My birthday was August 9th. And one of the things I was most grateful for, I am here. I am here. With it being November, it's been a month since my eye became inflamed, since I was going back and forth to the doctor. And that in and of itself has been a crazy experience. This is one of the first times in a long time I look more like myself. And I know to some people, like, they may not have been able to really see it, but I knew. So it feels good to be able to look at myself and be like, wow, like, this is really me. Not dealing with the extra swelling. And even though things are still not exactly how they were before, like, this is the most I have looked like myself, have even felt like myself in a long time. Just woke up. That sounds like you had a good nap. Yeah, so now that's one thing I haven't been doing lately, is taking naps. Now, when I had a lot going on, I do take naps, but lately I've been feeling like I'm pretty good. So it's like by the time I get into bed, it's time for me to go to sleep. Yeah, so I'm trying to think what else has been going on. So as far as Masterpieces Writing and Editing LLC, if you are not signed up for my mailing list, make sure that you do that. Go to the link in the bio and do that. I've been quiet with the mailing list, but I promise to pick it back up in 2024. And I know y'all are tired of hearing me say that, but I promise. I have stuff that is ready to go, but it's like I just didn't feel, as if I need to push the issue. And that's really what this year has been for me. Just resting and recovering and just figuring out like what's a new normal for me. Because even though I am able to work at a faster pace, I'm still not going to stress myself out. Like, that's why I ended up sick last year. So it's like I'm very adamant about that. Like, I'm not trying to do too much. So I'm going to finish what I started, and I will take on new projects in 2024. However, if you guys wanted to talk to me one-on-one, you are free to do so. So go to the link in the bio to book with me. You can do that there. And I'm trying to think what else. Oh, my journals. And they're like sitting right here by me. So the last time that I had a video, I think I had just released Free Your Mind, Free Your Soul. So the latest one is Dream Sweet Dreams. If you guys can see that, I know that it's backwards on here, but I was super, super, super excited about this one because it was more like fun for me. So the first two, My Safe Place, Free Your Mind, Free Your Soul, that really had a lot to do with healing. However, this one, like, I am obsessed with dreams. I remember reading Sigmund Freud's On Dreams back in high school, and even though he was a very controversial figure, he was talking a lot of good stuff. So it's kind of like, hey, Timothy, it's kind of like, in a sense, it's like my family sees me as a dream interpreter, but I'm not that per se. Like, I can only just pick up certain things, but it's like I wanted people to be able to figure it out for themselves, like to actually keep track of what they dream. And I'm not sure if you can tell, but the clouds are in color there, and it was very important for me to have it in color. Like this was the first time I had a color interior. And I am going to go to the front, and here are the instructions. You don't just have to do sleep dreams, you can do life dreams. Hey Timothy, how have you been? So with that, I'll also have the hardcovers, and I was super duper excited to get these too. It was my first time seeing them. Like, isn't that great? Oh, and I forgot to show you the back. Life is but a dream is on the back. And I just love it. So I guess because it feels more like a traditional book to me. Like, I love these. And just to remind you of my safe place. So, paperback hardcover. And the same thing for Free Your Mind, Free Your Soul. And I especially love the glossy ones. Like, they look so good, especially, like, in the hardcover. Like, I absolutely love it. So, getting a journal will definitely help you out with that. Because sometimes, and I will say this, like, hey, so we have someone else who joined. So, I will say this about my dreams. Like, I've gotten good to the point to where I know it's something I need to pay attention to and whether it's something I need to ignore. Because a lot of the times it's like you do have crazy dreams. And it's just a mixture of things that you've been listening to, that you've been watching, things that you may not even consciously think about that were in your mind from years ago. Because sometimes it trips me out. It's like, why am I seeing this person in my dreams and I haven't seen them, talked to them, and I don't know how long. Like, why am I dreaming about them? So sometimes it's like they can mean things, sometimes like they don't. But whenever you get like that feeling, it's like, ooh, I felt like that was saying something to me. Like, just write it down. And in my own journal, I think I've only written probably like 2 dreams down. And here's the other thing too, like even before I got the journal, it's like whenever it's a message, like I can remember that really well. Like I can tell you a dream I had like when I was like 4 or 5. Like I still vividly remember things like that. So now it's like I just have that extra cushion. And it's interesting to be able to go back and see exactly what I thought about it, like shortly after having a dream, and then just coming back and reviewing it. And like I said, it doesn't just have to be your sleep dreams, your life dreams, your goals, your aspirations, coming back and checking up on them. So that will help out with that a lot. And to get the journals, you can go to the link in the bio. And I'm going to be looking over here because I have notes to keep up with everything. So, like, I won't forget. But if you do have any questions, comments, concerns throughout the live, feel free to comment. If you wanted to continue the conversation later, you can DM me. You can send me an email. So, do whatever you got to do in order to get what you need. And also for my membership, it is still available and you can still join for free. So, just DM me. I'm ready. And I will let you know just how to do that. So let's see here. So what I wanted to segue into was what we're talking about tonight. So it's not you, it's your trauma. So what do I mean by that? So I will speak from my personal experience first and then talk about other things that I have seen. So most people who went to school with me, and this is K through 12. So if they're teachers, if they are students, anyone, even like the people who worked in the office, like they will describe me as being, oh, she was the smart, quiet girl. And while that's not the worst compliment to have, like sometimes it kind of makes me cringe because I remember why I was the quiet girl. And, oh, that's good. Hi, Erica. I can't wait to hear about your journal. So, in being the quiet girl, you know, everyone just thought like that was just a part of my demeanor. And of course, like on a regular day, I do like just being to myself with just my thoughts. However, I was an insecure smart girl. That's what that was. And a lot of people would even go so far to say that I was shy. And it's like, I'm not shy at all. Like the people who know me best, like they will tell you like nothing about me is shy. Because some of the things I do, some people will say like they are kind of wild, kind of crazy. Not outlandish, but just with my imagination. You know, and I enjoy laughing, I enjoy having a good time. But the reason why I just didn't speak that much in school was because I felt as if I had to be silent. I felt as if people were going to criticize every single thing that came out of my mouth. And here's the interesting thing. I didn't start off that way. That's another reason, like how I knew like this really isn't me. So when I first started school, it's like I had all these friends, and I'm telling you, like it was a melting pot of different races, backgrounds. It's like I didn't even care about any of that. It's like these were just my friends. But then my family moved, and I got around people who look like me, and that is when like I had the worst experience ever. It's like I just didn't understand. It's like, why are y'all so mean? Why are y'all so critical? Like me just showing up as myself, it bothered a lot of people. And when I mean a lot, it bothered a lot of people. So in order to stop getting all of that extra attention, it's like, you know what? How about I just say less? And in saying less, I started to go into like kind of, I would say like this shell. And it's like I did not want to come out of it. And it was like as much as I could hide, the better. It's like that's what I wanted. It's like I don't want to be seen. But the thing about that, when you have a light, you cannot dim it. Like it is going to shine. And it's like I would always have people like throughout my school years, like who would remind me of that light. It's like, wait, how do you know? Like I didn't tell you I was interested in this or I like that, but people could see it. They really could tell. Yeah. And I still sometimes can go back into that feeling because, again, it's like in me being 33, I spent most of my life feeling that way. So you can say for about like a good 20 something years, like I spent my life like in this shell. But it's like I know now it's like, we're not going to go there. It's like, pull yourself out of that. It's like you're not that. And especially with me being the youngest sibling, and even in my cousin circle, like I'm one of the younger ones. Like there was always someone else for me to be compared to. So on top of what I was getting at school, it's always like, well, so and so is doing this now, and so doing this. When you gonna start? And it's like it was always like attention on me, and it's like, like why can't I just be? Why do people care so much? And even as an adult, it's like the things that people would care about. It's like, what difference does it make whether I drive or not? Why does that bother you? You know? And even with me moving back home, it's like, what difference does it make to you? Like, how is me moving bothering you? Like, y'all, I have heard some of the craziest things. Like, why is that bothering you? But that's kind of been a pattern that I've seen throughout my life. Every single thing I do or don't do is like there are eyes on me. But what I know now is I'm not hiding anymore. I'm just going to show up and you just going to get what you get. Either you like it or you don't. And in that, I'm more opinionated. And here's the thing, I've always been opinionated. I just didn't express my opinions. So with people having to get used to that now, it's kind of like she's different, she's changed. No, I'm just me, and I'm not operating in my trauma anymore. I'm doing my best to not go back to that place of insecurity. And another thing that I've noticed with other people, and I know some of you might be able to relate, whenever you have the people who explicitly say, that's just the way I am. Like, you run up on me, you gonna get done up, you gonna get cussed out, you gonna get told something. Oftentimes, they are operating from their trauma. So, they were in an environment to where they had to fight. They had to be defensive. Like, they had to be on guard all the time. And I experienced a little bit of that in my early 20s because I was so angry at everything and everyone. So when you're operating from that, like you always feel like I have to be on the defense, I have to be ready to go because you were not safe. For whatever the case may have been, there was not a safe environment, there was not a secure environment. So to make sure that you stay safe now as an adult, it's like you always got to be ready to go. And I'm going to switch over because I have been speaking like from a woman's perspective, but I'm going to switch over to the guys for a little bit. So with a lot of people who feel as if like they're nonchalant, they don't let things bother them, they don't have emotions, they don't really feel any type of way, they're lying. We were created to have emotions. So it's just crazy to me to hear people say they don't have emotions, they don't feel. No, you're numb. And you probably feel that it hurts whenever you let people in, whenever you start to care about people. Maybe you had people who left when you were younger. Maybe there were people who were not there. So you feel abandoned, rejected in some kind of way. So that's the reason why it's like, you know what? I'm just not going to feel anything. Even though you do feel something. You just want to allow yourself to tap into it. And that's still something that I see with people who I'm related to, when they say it's like, oh, that doesn't bother me. And even with men associating crying with weakness, like, you wouldn't have the capability to cry if you didn't need to cry. Like, it's there for a reason. But especially, with black men, it's like they're taught to just be strong. You got to take it. But no, like, you feel what you feel. And that's one of the reasons why I absolutely love my nephew. He is 9 and he is so emotionally intelligent. Like, he even reminds me of certain things. And I absolutely love that. So when we were dealing with my uncle's death, and I was telling him, like, it was okay because he didn't know my uncle, but he still felt sad because the people around him were sad. And I told him, it's like, that's okay for you to feel that way because, he was trying to make sense of it, and he was able to put himself in other people's shoes. And after he calmed down, he was like, do you need to cry? And I just told him, no, not now, baby. Maybe later I might need to cry. So, like, I just found that absolutely amazing. And whenever he is experiencing something, I allow him to talk about it, to feel what he feels, so that he won't grow up and become this numb person who just refuses to acknowledge that they do feel pain, that they do feel something, because as much as you try to deny it, it's there. And most of the time, like, it is like, it's just sadness that's buried under that anger, and it's like you just try to push it down, because with a lot of people who say that they used to have anger issues, you still do have them. If you haven't really done the work to work through them, you just haven't been in a lot of situations that make you angry. But you still do have it, because in the event that they get in a situation that ticks them off and they're triggered, you're going to see a completely different person. So even though there are so many other examples of how, like, our trauma can show up in our life, I'll give you another one. Even with friends, because I did not have the best experience with friends when I was growing up. It always seemed as if the people around me were looking for what they could get from me. I went through a long period to where it's like, you know what? I'm just fine by myself. Don't need any friends. I think that was Drake, like, no new friends. It's like, don't need that. But I had to realize, like, that was me operating in my trauma and me still dealing with trust issues. That's the reason why I did not want to have new people around, because the experience with the old people was so bad, instead of realizing, like, they just weren't the best people for you to be around. And one of the things that really helped me work through a lot of the issues that I was dealing with was Iyanla Vanzant. I absolutely love her. I know some people criticize her, but I love her. And she has a book, and it is called Get Over It. And what other message do you need? Like, it's in your face. And she goes through, and it's different techniques that she gives to help you get over the hard stuff that's hard to heal from. But she goes over dominant negative thinking patterns, and she has about 42. And when I tell y'all, like, the list of the ones I was dealing with, it was pretty long. Like, I didn't have all 42, but I think I may have been getting close. I don't know if I had about 30, 20 something, but it was a lot. And a lot of them do center around guilt and regret, shame, sadness, rejection, abandonment, insecurities, bitterness, so many different things, just like defensiveness, as I mentioned earlier. So many different things that we could be operating in, and we think that's just who we are. That's how we interact with the world. But it's like, nah, it's your trauma that's showing up instead of you. And in a sense, it's kind of like the trauma, like trying to protect the little you. And that's kind of how I see it now. Like, whenever people are still operating in their trauma, it's kind of like trauma is this big monster, and the little person is just cowered down, like, on the inside, scared to move, scared to act or do anything. But when you really do heal, you work on strengthening that little person, giving them permission to speak, giving them permission to mature, to grow up, to advocate for themselves, to actually be able, not necessarily to fight, but to be able to just tackle what is before them, instead of having the trauma come in to save the day. And oftentimes all it does is create a really big mess. So one of the ways that you can recognize whether or not trauma is getting in the way is just look around. What type of relationships do you have? Are they healthy? Do you feel drained from your relationships, even with work? Like, how do you feel about work? Like, what is your social life? Like, do you have a sense of community? If you feel like any of these things are lacking, how you feel within yourself, if you feel as if it's something that's just not clicking, something that's missing, oftentimes there's some work that needs to be done. And I will tell you this. So I have been on this healing journey for years now, but I did not really start doing the work I really needed to do until 2 years ago. And I will tell you why in a second. And the reason why is because like sometimes we can have like so much information, we don't know what to do with it. So it's like I know this is a problem, but how do I fix it? And I'm going to start going down my list of tips to help you guys get there. But the first thing that you have to do before you start to do any work is just simply have self-awareness. Be aware of the fact that something's off, something's wrong. Acknowledge that you need help. When I tell y'all, like, I think this is the biggest issue for most people, that lack of self-awareness. Not being able to see themselves as having an issue. And I think it's because sometimes they might see themselves as the issue, but that's not the case. It's like, no, 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 no. It's how you deal with your issues. That's the issue. You are not the issue. And once you are able to look at it in that way, because I know for me, every single failure, which now I don't even see them as failures, they're lessons. But years ago, every time it appeared as if I failed, that would take an attack against how I saw myself. So it would make me feel lower and lower and lower. Like I said, I was operating in insecurity. So that's what I had to start working on. It's like, how do I build myself up? How do I really begin to become more confident? So it was that conversation that I had to have with myself, realizing like, man, like I don't really have any self-esteem. I don't really have a true sense of self-worth. And that is a very hard thing to acknowledge because I thought I did. I was like, now it may not be as strong as other people, but I thought I had it. But I was like, man, like 2 years ago when I realized it's like, I really don't have it, do I? Like, man, like, oh no. But it's okay though. It's okay. And it's like we have to have those hard conversations with ourselves. And even just using some of the examples that I use. So I really do want to have friends, or I really do want to have a healthy relationship. I don't always want to be the person who fights. I don't always want to be the person who argues. It's like I don't always like feeling numb as if I can't connect to anything or anybody. It's like just being real. Like it's okay. Like you don't have to stick with that trauma. Like that's just a way for you to survive. But now the focus is for you to live, to actually thrive. So it's like you don't have to hold on to that. And it's like you can acknowledge, like, this is something I need to let go. Yep. Biggest pill we all have to swallow. Like just being real with yourself. And it really is ego. That ego is something else. Because when I was younger, I was tricking myself into thinking that, like, ain't nothing wrong with me. Like, it's everybody else, not me. And during that time when I was in high school, Khalees had just dropped Bossy. I was like, I'm bossy. You just going to have to deal with it. You don't like what I say. Like, that's just on you. But what it was just a false sense of trying to, like, protect myself. So if I can get to you first, you can't get to me. But that's not a healthy way to be. And I was desperate to break out of the shell that I was in. So it was like by any means necessary, but it was still a false sense of self. So in order to work on getting to who I truly was, I had to focus on who I was and whose I was. So that's number two. And I know that people have different beliefs. However, I truly do believe that God has defined who I am, like, and he had defined it long before I even existed. So that was one thing that I had to really spend time in doing. It's like, what does God say about me? Who does he say I am? So it's like, you can call me whatever, but it's like, make sure you call me a child of God. That is what's most important to me. And I wanted to show up as someone who was fearfully and wonderfully made, and someone who was formed like well before, like I was in my mother's womb. So like to know someone knew who I was, like you knew what I would become. And even the things that like I have always loved, like writing, like that has been a part of me, like storytelling, like, and it's even the art itself of writing, songwriting, that has been with me since forever. So it's like getting back to those unique gifts that I know like were given to me. It wasn't given to me by other people or by the world. And like I said, with me being someone who was insecure, I would oftentimes go by what people would call me. So if they saw me as the good girl, that's who I gotta be. If they see me as the quiet, smart girl, that's who I gotta be. But I had to let go of all of that because, like I said, once you start becoming more like you, like yourself, it's going to upset the people who benefit from you not being yourself, who benefit from being who they want you to be in that moment. And when I was in school, people knew, like, whatever issue they had, they come to me, I might have a solution. Like, hey, you don't have your homework, you can copy mine. You don't know the answers to the test, here, look at mine. Like, that's really what it was. I used to be the girl who would write excuses for people who would skip school. Like, that's what I would do. Like, why? But people knew they can come to me for stuff like that. But at the time, it's like I didn't want to say no because I feared what the fallout would be from that. But it's like now, like I said, because sometimes just to hear like people like say how they still see me, it's just a reminder that like you didn't really know who I was. So I can't be mad at you for still seeing me in that way. And like I said, like sometimes it's not the worst compliments ever, but it still is something like that wasn't really me. And it's like I wish you had gotten a chance to see the real me. Because whenever people see those glimpses, they're like, oh, look at her. Like, she has personality. It's like, oh, I didn't know you were into that. I didn't know you could talk like that. It's like, you never took the opportunity to find out. But also, I didn't present myself in that way either. So it's kind of twofold. But it's just an important reminder to me that other people's opinions of me really do not matter. Now, while I do hope they are positive, it does not matter because other people do not define me. God does. And from that definition, I was able to apply that to my day-to-day life. It's like, okay, so what does this look like in work, in my relationships, in my friendships? How does this look just for me as a person, even as an aunt, as a sister? What does that look like for me? Because the trauma can show up in different ways, and people pleasing was a big one for me. Like I said, I had a hard time telling people no. I didn't want people to be upset with me, so it's like, you know what, if that's what you want me to do, I gotta do it. But it would tire me out, like it would drain me. So it was like, I can't keep doing this. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it in another video earlier this year, but that's a big part of the reason how I ended up sick. Not saying no. And thinking that like, okay, just because I can help someone, maybe I should, but now I know just because you can help someone does not mean that you should. And now I definitely go to God about that before I help anyone do anything, big or small, because it's like I want to make sure that I'm continuously in line with not only who I am, but whose I am. So the next thing was a game changer for me. So number 3, seek professional help. You cannot do this all alone. You cannot. And I remember, I forgot, I think that was Charlemagne who said it during an interview. Oh, yes, it was on the Breakfast Club with Pastor Michael Todd, and he used to pastor at Transformation Church. And he mentioned to him that Lil Duval said that people run to therapy because they're running from God. And I'm like, I don't know about that. Because the two go hand in hand for me. And I know without God, like, I would not have gone to the therapist. Like, I felt as if I was being led there. And I know a lot of people do not have this experience, but y'all, like when I tell you, I only made one phone call. And from that one phone call, I knew that was it for me. Because it was a God thing. So, like I said, I don't know where he gets that from. I don't know. Even though it still might be some people who might be trying to get some kind of clarity on like why it's other people and not them, which is not possible. Because even when it's mostly other people, it's still you a little bit. But for me, like it was all connected. Like I had a screenshot of my therapist's name in my phone months before I even reached out to her. So it had always been something like I felt drawn to. I just didn't act on it until I had to. And that's one of the things I want people to know also. Like you don't have to wait until you are in that dark place in order to reach out. Like call somebody before you get there. And I know with me, like, that's the one thing. Like, I don't have any regrets, but if I could do something different, I would have gotten help a long time ago, at least 10 years before I actually got a therapist. And I actually had an opportunity to get counseling for free when I was in college. But because I knew the woman who was over the program, I was like, no, she's going to know I'm crazy. So I'm not going. But I wish I would have just pushed through. And it could have saved me from a lot of other mishaps that I had over the next 10 years. However, like, I still, like, absolutely love, like, the progression of how my journey to therapy went. And I could not have created something like that for myself, which is why I said, like, I know it was God. And there are so many different avenues that you can take in order to get professional help. And if you're still, kind of leery about actually talking to a stranger, start with your community. Ask them. It's like, like, is there someone who you trust, someone who you know? If you are active in the church, start with your spiritual leaders. Like, they have a lot of insight and clarity. Like, wise counsel doesn't necessarily have to be a counselor, if you get what I'm saying. Just someone who can really remove themselves from the situation to where, like, they're not attacked, so they can give you an unbiased opinion, even to help you along that journey. And it's like just having people who are in sound mind, people who really do have your best interests at heart. And even when you're ready to take that journey to get a therapist, make sure that you do your research, and it doesn't have to be something that happens like immediately. Like, things like that take time. And even if you go to someone and it wasn't the best experience, try someone else again later. Like, don't let that be the end all be all. Like, you know what, it didn't work for me, wasn't the right person. That's just one person. You have to keep going. And I'm super grateful that all I had to do was make one call. But like I said, I think that was personal for me. That's what I needed at the time. Because I think with me, I've always had the answers, not necessarily the action. So I think that's what God was trying to tell me. It's like, you knew. You knew. I just didn't always act on it. But seeking professional help, like, was definitely a game changer. And I would say go a step above just talking, but don't rush into anything other than that. Like, you do want to take baby steps, but after a while, you're going to have to do a little bit more work, especially if you had trauma that runs really, really, really deep. You're going to have to do some rewiring in your brain. And I know I mentioned before that I've done EMDR, and that's the eye movement desensitization reprogramming. I had to say that slowly. So with that, like, I'm basically like seeing myself outside of myself, like seeing situations differently than when I was actually in them, to where I don't have the same emotions. And it's like I can switch out what I want the emotion to be to where it's not a negative one anymore. Like, it's one where I can empathize more, like, not just with me, but with the person who was involved. And when I tell you, like, it has changed the way I see the world a lot. And I was thinking the other day, I was like, yeah, I should be a whole lot more upset about that, but it's the EMDR. It doesn't bother me anymore, And not to say, like, it doesn't bother me at all, because oftentimes, like, the people are still the same. It's just that you have to make a conscious decision to show up differently. Even if you never get the apology, even if you never get someone who acknowledges what they even did to you, because that happens. Because again, they're dealing with their trauma. So they're not at the point to where they can take themselves outside of the situation and just offer you an apology. Because I think sometimes that's what we're all looking for. Like, if people would have apologized a long time ago, we wouldn't be on here tonight talking about all this stuff, right? Because we would have gotten what we needed, but oftentimes, like, we don't. So with that, do not be afraid of reaching out to other people and getting professional help. Now, here is another one that's really big. Have a sense of community. And I know I have been saying this all throughout the year. I would not have been able to get through this without having a community. Like, the past year has been crazy. Like, crazy, crazy. Like, every single area of my life that could take a hit, took a hit. That was mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, financially. All of them took a hit. But now, being a year later, like, everything is being rebuilt, everything is being restored. And a lot of that is like being able to see who was for me, who wasn't, being able to have like people who genuinely supported me, even when it's people who are getting absolutely nothing from me, but just want to know how I'm doing. Like, who wants to know how my family is doing with all the things that have been going on? And it's like, wow. So it's been a reminder that, like, God is just still with me. And that's something that my therapist would tell me all the time, like, God is with you. And even though I know, like, we just left off of therapy, but the other thing I wanted to add to that is, like, get someone who reflects your beliefs. It was important for me to have a Black woman who was spiritual. Okay? So she had to be a believer like me, because it's some conversations I felt I couldn't have with everyone. And I needed her to be able to relate. So that's also something to keep in line. And it's like, now, like, I do see her as a part of my community, just like my family, just like my friends, just like my clients. And my clients have been absolutely positively amazing. And that's been like the unexpected community that I did not know I needed, because they were going through stuff too. Y'all, like when I tell you, like, this year has been crazy for all of us, but it's like I'm a firm believer, like, everybody who was connected to me, even past, present, future, it's like I really do feel as if better is on the way. Like, because I don't think all of this would be going on with us if there was nothing better on the other side. So it's important to have people who can hold your hand, who can pray with you, who can get you out the house, the people who can get you out of the bed, who can keep you encouraged, who can keep you going, and also hold you accountable. So in those moments when it is a little difficult and you feel yourself like trying to go back to old behavior, they're like, that's not you. Wow. Yeah, I'm no longer Solution Sally either. Yeah, and I keep forgetting because I'm looking at the actual lens. So it's like I keep forgetting to look at the camera to read the comments. So I might miss some, but forgive me if I do. But I am no longer Solution Sally myself. So I understand. But getting back to community, just make sure that you have genuine people around you, authentic people, people who can keep it real with you, even tell you the stuff you do not want to hear but you need to hear it. You need to have that. And I would give you this little anecdote that happened in 2011, probably, maybe 12. I don't know. But during my college years, I was extremely angry, because of a fight that had happened with my dad. And I felt as if everyone was picking sides. So, you know what? I just felt the need to cuss about everything. Now, of course, it was already a bad habit, but it just went to a whole other level. But my sister told me one day, she was like, "Can you not talk without cussing?" And of course, like, my immediate response was to cuss then. Because again, that defensiveness came out. And it's like, how dare you have the nerve to say that to me? Like, are you trying to judge me? Like, that's just who I am. Which is how I know, like, it's not. It's not. And now, like, since I've actually let go of a lot of anger, I don't cuss as much. Like, now, do I still cuss in my head? Yeah. Sometimes it may come out a little bit. But it's not like at the forefront. Like, there are so many other things that I know, like, I can pull from, so many other things that I know I can say, like, in place of it. Like, my brain doesn't even really go there. But that's because I actually dealt with the anger. So sometimes you have to have people who put you in front of you, who are that mirror to you to be like, this ain't you, boo. Like, you gotta do something different. And be willing, like, because this is how I am. I might be a little upset when you first tell me, but I'll go away and think about it. And then I'll come back and be like, I thought about what you said and you're right. I do need to so and so. And one thing that I'm still working through is being self critical. So, in recovering from being someone who's insecure, you still might have a tendency to overthink things. So, like, even when, like, I do things that are less than perfect, it's still that thought, like, you could have done better, you could have did this, but it's like, nope, 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 nope. We're not going to do that. And it's like I had to have another conversation with my sister a couple of weeks ago, because it's like, oh no, like, I don't want to seem this way, so it's like, no, like, you are human, you are growing, you are maturing, like, you are still learning. So, like, it is okay. So having a community will definitely keep you in check. So moving right along, so number 5 is making sure that you have a system in place. And this is something that you will learn, like, from each and every one of the ones that I mentioned before. You will be able to take bits and pieces from each area. So being able to remind yourself of what it is that you need to focus on, reminding yourself of who you are, like knowing that you have people you can reach out to, that you can talk to, people who can keep you encouraged, having resources that keep you encouraged. Reading is a big thing for me. Affirmations is a big thing for me. I had a client who suggested that I record myself saying my affirmations. And y'all, like, when I tell you, like, hearing me talk to me, it was almost like it wasn't me, but it spoke to my soul. And I've mentioned this before too. My first assignment that I had to do for therapy was to look in the mirror the first 5 minutes of my day and speak to myself. And when I first started doing it, y'all, I was crying, eyes red, like snot in my nose, like it was bad. But by the end of that week, I was smiling. Like, there were tears of joy in my eyes because I truly believe the things that I was saying. So with that, like you have to have something in place, something that you do routinely. Now it doesn't have to be every single day because sometimes like it is hard to keep up with that, but something that you do on a regular. So I don't do all of my affirmations like I used to years ago, but like my morning routine now includes me listening to a meditation on the Abide app. It includes me going to YouVersion and going through the story for today. It involves prayer, and I don't journal every day. However, I go when the Spirit leads me to do it. That's what I do. So like there are variations, and depending on where I am, like in the season, I might do one thing more than others because before I wasn't doing the daily prayer on YouVersion. Now I do it. Still not every day, but it is something that helps keep me in line. So it's like, okay, so if I want to make sure I have a good day, I got to start off right. So making sure that it's like you have these things in place. And my nephew told me, he was like, you're the only person I know with a routine. I have to have it. Even with being active 5 times out of the week. Before, I was just doing 3. But it's like, nope, you need to add those extra 2 days. You need to move some more. So it's like, okay, all right. And when I started off with therapy, I was going every week. Yes, I needed it. But then it's like off to every other week, and the insurance changed, so I wasn't able to stick with my therapist. But y'all, she was kind enough to still check in on me. Isn't that amazing? So she told me the last time that we spoke, it's like, now these aren't really sessions. It's like we're just catching up. And I absolutely love that. That even though like we're not technically like, client and servicer, she still makes time for me. So it's like, especially during those moments where I feel like it's a lot going on, it's like, let me make sure I'm not doing too much. Let me make sure I'm thinking about this in the right way. So it has been amazing to still have that like as a part of my system, like something that I know like I can go to, like I can check in with. So let me see. Hey. Yeah, so doing that mirror exercise, like it would definitely help like a lot. Like really just speaking to yourself, like who are you really? And it goes back to what I said about who I am and whose I am. So telling myself, like I'm strong, I'm courageous, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. It's like really speaking to myself like the way that God sees me. And it's like I could see myself like each day, like getting a little bit stronger, and it was such a beautiful experience. And it's like I almost hated like when it wasn't homework anymore. It's like, oh, I don't have to do it anymore. But even with that, I just started doing variations of it, until like I weaned off of it. But like when I tell you, like it is very, very powerful to do that because it's kind of like you really see yourself, like outside of how everyone else sees you. Because, like when you're just passing by, like just doing your morning routine, trying to get to work, trying to see about the kids stuff, it's like you don't have time to really stop and look at yourself. Like, not check to make sure your hair is in place or your clothes look good, but like to really look at you, to look into your own soul, like through your own eyes. Like, it is like a very life changing experience. Like, trust me. And I guarantee you're going to come out a whole lot more confident. I guarantee it. So, like I mentioned, just have all these things in place, and even with getting professional help, your therapist will give you tools and resources to help you along so that you're able to build a system for yourself, a way that you can check in. Like, whenever there are moments when I feel as if I'm a little off, it's like, let me go right about this. Like, something seems off. I don't know what's going on. And especially, it's important to get things that are outside of people because it still is great to have that community, but people aren't always available. And sometimes we can become codependent, thinking this is the person who gets me through. So when they're not available, what am I going to do? If they're not available, you still can rely on you. You still can rely on God. Like there are still so many other things that you can do to self-soothe, to get yourself through whatever it is that you are feeling. And that was another toxic flaw that I had years ago. I was always that person for everyone. For everyone. And that was family, that was friends, relationships. I was that person. So it's like, where do I go when I need this? Because everybody's coming to me with their problems, but where do I go? So you start to feel as if you're alone and you don't really have anyone, but it's like, that is a lie. Like, that is the furthest thing from the truth. Because when you have a true system in place, there are so many other outlets that you have. So, Last but not least, so let me try to give you a rundown because sometimes I forget things. So, number one was actually acknowledging that some things needed to improve, that you needed to work on some things. So, having that self awareness. Number two was knowing not only who you are, but whose you are. Number three was getting professional help. Number four was building a community. Number five was having a system in place. And number six, I have to thank Michelle Williams for this. You have to continue to check in. And y'all, the reason why I wanted to mention Michelle Williams is because her book, Checking In, is the reason why I went to therapy. It absolutely is. Y'all, like, it came at the perfect time. Like, she dropped that book, like, perfectly on time. 2021 was crazy for me. Here's the thing, it wasn't as crazy as 2020, but I was dealing with the remnants of 2020. So going through a breakup and trying to rebuild, but it's like I still do want a relationship with this person, and even in familial relationships, like, okay, like, things still aren't perfect, but I'm gonna try, to make it, the best I can, like, try to accept it for what it is, even though it's really not. And it's like during that time, similar to this year, there were so many attacks and coming from the same place. And it's like, what is this? Like, I don't know what to do. And it actually was me having like a complete and utter meltdown from that feeling of being abandoned and rejected that I had been dealing with like since I was 4. And when I got her book, and read about her experience. And I had heard her talk about dealing with depression for years. And even though she wasn't diagnosed in 7th grade, that's when she first started to notice something was off. It was the same for me. So hearing her talk about her story and seeing so many similarities, it was like, I got to get this book. And y'all, like, it was definitely a mirror to me. Even the absolute last thing, like on the last page in her book, she has a scripture. She has Philippians 4:8 at the back of her book. And the reason why that was so pivotal was like during the time, like when I was really struggling with my emotional health, someone told me, like, here's something you need to read. And it was something that we read together. And it's like focusing on things that are true, that are noble, that are right, that are pure, that are lovely, admirable, excellent, praiseworthy. Think on such things, like not all these other things. So it's like even seeing that, I was like, man, like this is exactly what I need. And I don't know like how many days it was from me finishing that book to me actually getting on the phone and calling my therapist for the first time. But it was like my voice was shaky, I was trembling, but I knew it had to be done. And like hearing her be on the other side of it, like things still aren't perfect, but she's better because of it, and it's like even though she was diagnosed in her 30s, she still had ups and downs. In 2018 it was publicized with her having to go to a mental health facility, and of course like with her engagement being called up, like she had to live all this stuff out publicly in front of everyone. So to hear her speak so beautifully about her journey, and it's like, look at her, like she is okay, she is still here. So I was like, let me go. Let me go and get the help I need. And what she talks about in her book is making sure that you have 3 levels of check-ins. And it ties into everything that I talked to you guys about tonight. So checking in with yourself, checking in with your community, and checking in with God. Like, that is how you are going to make it. Because sometimes when we're out here and life is lifing, sometimes we forget that we need to have those check-ins because we just get so busy with everything. So with that, it's important to know that it's like, okay, I had to have a moment where I can stop, check in, be like, hey, you good? Like, you doing okay? And even in those moments where like I just get so like consumed with what I'm doing, it's like I take a moment to be like, ooh, I'm grateful that I can do this. That way, like, I don't just get so caught up in the fact that it's like it's this work that's giving me worth. Catch that. It's not the work that's giving you worth. So with that, I'm able to just take a step back and be like, oh, like, it's not just me who's doing all this. It's a greater power that's operating like in me and through me, and being able to have people who I can connect with, people who may or may not be in the same place where I am. I still can clap for them. I still can celebrate them. Why I can expect them to be there for me, I can be there for them too. It's like it's reciprocated. Like, it doesn't have to be one-sided anymore. Not the way that it used to be, years ago. And it's like, that's a really beautiful thing, like to still be able to know, like, I'm okay. And with it being a year since I got sick, so naturally anxiety still creeps up, which is the craziest thing. You know the same thing. It's not going to happen the same way twice. You know it. But your brain tells you something different. So, like, I was super emotional and I reached out to my therapist. And, like, when I was talking to her, she was like, you sound good. I'm like, I do. Because in my mind, I'm like, oh no. Like, I hope I'm not about to have another meltdown. But she's like, you sound really good. It's like, you sound a whole lot better than the person you were when you called me 2 years ago. I was like, wow. And it's important to have those reminders to be like, I am still okay. And the only way to know that you are still okay is if you continue to check in. So do not let that slip. Do not let that slide. Like, that is just as important as any other thing. Like, checking in with yourself. Like, whenever there are changes, when things begin, whenever they end, whenever you're in the middle of something, like, it's always a certain point where you can check in and be like, okay, how we doing? You know, do we need to switch something up? Does something need to change? You know, perfect example with work. So I had a big project last month, so I was kind of anxious about working on Wednesday because Wednesdays are my off days. But I had a conversation with myself like, Erica, you're still going to have days off, just not on Wednesday. And I was like, you're right. You're absolutely right. So, like, having that moment where I could check in with myself and be like, okay, girl, you ain't got nothing to worry about. Like, you're good. It is okay. So, making sure that you check in with yourself is super, super duper important when it comes to healing from your trauma. And this is a bonus. Take your time. I didn't even have this one written down, but take your time. It didn't take you overnight to be able to deal with all this stuff. So it's not going to happen overnight when you don't have to deal with it. So give yourself grace. Like, make sure that you are acknowledging the fact, like, this is a process. Like, I didn't get here by myself, so I'm not going to get out of it by myself. And I didn't always have the answers then. I don't always have them now. Even when I think I do, I still may not make the best choices, the best decisions. Like, it is absolutely positively fine. Like, you are okay. Like, you are on the right path. Like, you are doing what you need to do. And it's like just taking each step as it comes, day by day. That's it. So, that is all that I have for It's Not You, It's Your Trauma. And the main thing is, I love how Dr. Tama, I think that's how you say her name, when she says, we come home to ourselves when we heal. I absolutely love her podcast, Homecoming. And that's what I want all of us to do. I want all of us to come home to who we truly are, who we were before the trauma, who we will be after the trauma. That is who I want us to come home to. And, like, that's the point. Like, we don't have to hide behind the trauma. We don't have to go along with the facade. We don't have to put on the mask and pretend as if we're this way and we're not. It's like, the goal is to be who we truly are. And if we don't know, that's a place to start. And it's always, 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 always room to learn and room to grow and room to heal. So if you guys have any questions for me, you can drop them. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So, like I mentioned before, to check out whatever I got going on, you can go to the link in the bio. I have not been posting that much, mainly because I don't feel like it. And that's okay. I will revisit all of that in 2024. But one thing that I did want to mention to you all, so I did add a new page to my website. So I'm trying out being an Amazon associate, and we get like a 6-month trial period, and you have to get at least 3 purchases in order to keep it. So if you want to help your girl out, I think I've got to January because I didn't really post that much about it, just a few stories here and there. So if you go to my website and you go to my faves, you will see a lot of things that I like to buy on Amazon, and it's snacks, electronics. I also have Black Friday deals on there, and they have a lot of them. And if you want to sign up to become a Prime member for even more deals, you can do that there as well. And I still have my birthday wish list up because I want to live every day like it's my birthday. So if you wanted to still get me something you can, and I'll think of it as a Christmas gift too, you know. So I decided to just keep it up there, even though the countdown is over. You know, I'm not going to get in the way of anyone who wants to, you know, sow a good seed, someone who wants to bless me. And I always, always, always promise to pay it forward. So it's not just going to be me receiving, I'm going to be giving as well too. So to check all of that out again, go to the link in the bio, go to my website and check out my faves. And like I said, like I really do appreciate you all more than you know, and especially this past year, because it has been a very, very, very wild year. But I am super, super duper grateful, super thankful. Like I don't even normally do lives right before a holiday. Like I don't. But I felt really good about doing it today. Like there is so much to just be grateful for, to be thankful for. Like the simple fact that we are here. Like the fact that you were able to even watch this, listen to this, to actually be here while it's live. Like that in and of itself is a gift. Like it's a blessing. You know, so even though things may not be perfect, we're here. And we still got time to figure it out. You know, and to me that's what life is all about. Like that's the beautiful thing, you know, and just continue to look out for one another. You know, like it's not just about one of us, it's about all of us because there is just so, so, so many things that are going on. And it's like, I have an aunt who's in the hospital right now, you know, and it's like, we're still really waiting to hear like what her recovery will be like. And it's something that happened to her, like just all of a sudden, like you just don't know, you know. So it's not just you who's going through it, everybody else is going through it too. So just continue to be there for one another. And even when you have to do it for a distance, that's the thing I've been doing a lot of this year, loving people from a distance, but still hoping and praying and believing that they will get the healing that they need, that they will be able to one day see themselves outside of themselves, where they won't harm themselves or others because of their unhealed trauma, where they can really just walk freely like the way that we were created to be. Like we weren't made to carry the things that we carry. That's why our systems break down. That's why we get depressed. That's why we get anxious. It's like a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with, like it's not natural. We're not meant to deal with all of that. But we're meant to be healed. We're meant to be whole. We're meant to be free. We're meant to be complete individuals, not looking to the outside world to fill us, knowing that like we were already born with every single thing that we would ever need. And that's all I want to help people do. You know, so again, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for sticking with me. For everyone who has purchased my journals, thank you so, so much. And if you haven't, make sure you leave a review. Let other people know what you think about it. And even if you just wanted to send me a personal testimonial about it, I would love to hear it. So I do have one more journal that's coming out this year, and it is for my nephews, and they requested it. And I absolutely love that because most of the ones like I've been doing have been kind of geared toward women, and even my safe place, it was more so like for women and men. But this one is strictly for young men. It's called My Thoughts. So giving them a safe place of their own where they can draw, where they can write, where they can plan out goals for the future, you know. And that's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't matter how young. Like, I talk about my nephew a lot. He's 9. Like, and he is so emotionally mature. And I just want other people to experience the same, you know, no matter how old, no matter how young. And like, that's really what I am on a mission to do. So I don't see any questions for me. And it has been a long time since I've been on Instagram Live. And every single time I take a break and come back, something looks different. And I have to get back used to like where things are. But I think everything went well, you know, and I won't know for a fact until like I listen to everything back. But again, that's just me being self-critical, and I'm still working on that, you know, because in my mind I feel like I'm jumbling over words, I'm messing up. But then when I listen to it, it's like there's nothing wrong with that. But again, it's not me, it's my trauma that I'm healing from. So again, guys, I thank you so, so, so much for tuning in, and I hope that you all have a lovely Thanksgiving. And if you don't see me before January 1st, I hope that you all have a wonderful holiday season. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. And I will see you all soon. And just continue to take care. Bye.